What is up, guys? My name is Lex and welcome back to the vlog. The last time we talked, I had a pretty good session at Maryland Live, winning $1,400. Then after that, I won $1,200 at MGM National Harbor. And then since I've been back in Florida, I'm on about a $3,600 upswing. So let's keep this run good train going. The first hand we get into today, we start out with pocket aces. Under the gun raises to 35, it folds all the way to me on the big blind. I decide to 3-bet to 130, and he makes the call. So going heads up here to our first flop, back in Florida, 8, 9, 4, 2 diamonds. With an overpair on this board, it's pretty safe so far. I put out a C-bet. I make it $165. I go around 60% pot here, and I actually think I could be going a little bit bigger. He's not going to be folding any of his overpairs, 10s, jacks, queens, or kings on this board. He's not going to be folding any straight draws or flush draws, so I think a bet of maybe $200 would be better. But I make it $165. My opponent thinks for about 30 seconds and makes the call. $595 in the middle. The turn card is the 10 of spades. I think for a little bit of time, and I decide to check. I want to explain my thought process here. So this turn card can bring in some straight draws such as 6, 7, and Queen Jack on the flop, which now make a straight. My opponent can also make a set of 10s, which is likely a hand he can have raising under the gun and calling a 3-bet. He can also have some 2 pairs like 8, 10 suited or 9, 10 suited. And we're also losing to pocket 8s and pocket 9s. So on this board, I decide to check for a couple reasons. 1, for pot control. 2, to let my opponent bluff. Or 3, to let my opponent bet with a worse hand, and I could just check call down and let him value own himself. I've said this before on my vlog, and because I play at Hard Rock basically every single week at the 5-10 level, I play against a lot of the same players, so I have to be balanced with my checking range. I have to be able to check overpairs and strong hands sometimes so that my opponents can't exploit me. If I'm only checking when I'm weak and only betting when I'm strong, my opponents can play pretty face up against me, which is not what I want to have happen. My opponent bets $350. I look back at my cards. I do have the ace of diamonds and the ace of spades, so I do block both nut flush draws here. I've already made up my mind that I'm going to call here and most likely call down on all rivers. So I make the call, $350 extra going in the middle. The river card is the 5 of diamonds, brings in that front door flush. I continue to play and flow and check it over to my opponent. I expect him to be checking back all of his 1-pair hands. So whenever he tanks for about a minute and a half and puts out a bet of $550, I'm in a pretty weird spot here with pocket aces. I'm losing to all 2 pairs, sets, straights, and now flushes that the diamond got there. I end up counting out my stack. I have about $1,800 remaining in my stack. I consider possibly turning my aces into a bluff and jamming all in, given the fact that I'm the only one who can have the nuts here with the ace-high flush. But I think that would be a punt. I don't think my opponent's going to be folding a set or 2 pair if I jam all in, and he's definitely not going to be folding a flush if I jam all in. My hand is very under-repped. I check call the turn and then now check the river. It's possible he could be betting still with jacks, queens, kings, or ace-10, or he could be bluffing. So I decide to put in the call after thinking for about a minute, and he shows pocket kings. I show pocket aces for a better pair, but I'm kind of tilted. I could have won a bigger pot here if he would have 4-bet pre-flop, and if we would have got a better run out like 8-8, deuce, 7-4, I probably could have stacked him, but can't complain. Won our first pot here back in Florida, playing 5-10. Let's keep this run good going. There's a limp. The cutoff makes it 30. Seems like a pretty weak sizing, so I decide to 3-bet 6-7 suited in the small blind to $150. My opponent puts in a 4-bet to $450. All right, just kidding. You win. I fold. There is a limp and a middle position raise to 40. I call in the big blind with pocket 6s, and the limper ends up folding. So heads up here to the flop of Queen 9-4 rainbow. I check, and the middle position player checks back. Going to the turn, which is the 6 of diamonds. We make a set. I decide to overbet here. I bet pretty big, $100. My opponent doesn't think for too long and makes the call. Going to the river, which comes off the king. So pretty good card. Hopefully he has a hand like king jack, king queen, or ace king. I bet huge here, putting a big polarized bet sizing. I make it $350. My opponent snap calls me. I show pocket 6s for a set, and he shows ace king. What a great run out for us. We ended up turning a set, and my opponent river top pair top kicker. We ended up overbetting there and getting paid off, taking down another pot. Next hand of Vlog Watcher limps. I make it 50 with pocket 10s. The button calls, and now the action's back on him.
Come on in. You can watch yourself later.
My wife's the one who didn't shit, trust me.
Yeah.
She'll see it first.
She'll be like, why'd you play that hand? Jeez, Christ.
3 ways to a flop of king 6-6 rainbow. When it checks to me, I put out a small bet of $50. The button folds and the limper makes the call. Heads up here to the turn, which is another king, not the best card. Double pairs the board. When he checks to me, I don't think I can keep getting value from a worse hand, so I decide to check this one back. Heads up to the last card, which is a third king. We now make a full house. Kings full of 10s, But now the under the gun player decides to lead out. He makes it $50, a very small bet size here. And I think he most likely has ace high or possibly a weaker pair like pocket 7s, 8s, and 9s. I'm not worried about him having queens or aces or jacks because he just limp called preflop. So I'm almost positive I have the nuts here, so I decide to raise it up for value. I make it $275, trying to get called by a full house, worse than mine, or maybe even ace high. He thinks for a while, looks back at his cards, ends up counting out his chips, looking back at his cards again, trying to get a read off me, thinking for a while, but eventually decides to put in the call. I show pocket 10s for a full house, and he mucks. His wife is not going to like that one. Started the session off pretty good, making some hands and getting paid off, up over $1,000 now. Moving right along here, I raised to $35 with beautiful red pocket kings. The cutoff calls $35 and the big blind calls as well. So going three ways to the flop of 3-5 king, flopping top set on this super dry, unconnected board with top set. I decide to check and the cutoff checks behind. Going to the turn, which is the 9 of clubs, does bring a flush draw and also a gut shot straight draws to jack 10 or queen jack. When the big blind leads out now for $50, I decide to spring the trap. I'm going to raise big here, trying to get value from all of his flush draws, maybe if he has a king, or possibly cooler his sets or two pairs to the max. I end up making it $250. The action is now on the cutoff player. He doesn't think for too long before folding. Now the big blind goes into the tank. He starts thinking for a little bit of time now, obviously hoping for a call or possibly a re-raise. That would be amazing. We are holding the nuts here with top set, but it doesn't come to that. He eventually folds, and we win this pot. About a half an hour goes by before the cutoff player raises it up to $35. He had been playing pretty tight, pretty snug, not getting too out of line, unknown player to me. I end up calling on the button with pocket 3s, and the big blind makes a call as well. Going to the flop of 9, 10, 3, flopping another set, our third set of the session here. This time bottom set on a super wet and connected board. Can't get much better than this. The big blind checks, and now the cutoff continues to put out a c-bet. He makes it $50. And on this particular board, there's so many hands I can get value from, all over pairs, two pairs, straight draws, flush draws. I'm going to fast play my bottom set here. I don't block any top pair holdings or two pair holdings, so I put in a raise. I make it $165. The big blind lets his hand go. The cutoff thinks for about 30 seconds and makes a call for $165, going here to the turn, which is the king of spades. The cutoff player checks it over to me, I think for about 30 seconds, and I decide to check this one back. And I'm going to tell you guys what my thought process was here. This is a reflection of running bad for the last 2 months, getting coolered, losing big pots, getting set under set, flush under flush, full house under full house, and I basically saw monsters under the bed. The term monsters under the bed is used in poker, basically referring to you thinking that your opponent always has the nuts, thinking that your opponent is always beating you, even if you have a really strong hand. And I think this has a lot to do with the last 2 months of me getting bad beat and coolered and not really running too good. I just have a bad feeling about this. Queen Jack obviously gets there, which is an open-ended on the flop. That's a hand that my opponent could raise pre-flop, c-bet the flop, and then call my raise. He can also have pocket kings, which is a hand he would also raise pre-flop, bet on the flop, and then call my raise. So I'm losing to queen jack, I'm losing to pocket kings, losing to pocket 9s and pocket 10s. So I actually pot control, check back this turn. I don't really like it. I don't like it at all. I think I should just be betting here, but I was seeing monsters under the bed. Definitely not what you want to be doing. Playing poker for a living. We end up going to the river, which comes off a brick, and now my opponent leads out for $400. I don't think this particular player would be going this big with a one-pair hand like king jack, king queen, ace king, or aces. I think he has most likely two pair, a set, or a straight. And we're losing to all sets, and we're also obviously losing to a straight, but we're beating all two pairs. I actually contemplate hero folding here on the river, but that's just way too weak. Definitely can't be folding a set for this price. I actually tell my opponent, hey, I'm not slow rolling you here. I actually have kind of a decision given this board run out. I decide to put in the call, and he shows king 9 of hearts for two pair. I show my pocket 3s, and I'm just kicking myself here. I obviously could have won a way bigger pot now that I've seen his hand. I'm pretty mad at myself. I think I played this hand pretty terrible, but sometimes you're just not on your A game. Gonna try to shake that one off, and what a better way to do it than play everyone's favorite hand, pocket jacks. Raise it up from middle position to $35. Only the button makes the call. Flop is jack high. We flop another set, our fourth set of the session here, running super hot, set after set after set. I decide to put out a bet here. I make it $35. My opponent thinks for about 2 seconds and makes a call. The turn card is the 7 of hearts, now bringing in a backdoor flush draw. I continue to bet here, telling a story I have a big hand. I bet $100, and my opponent calls very quickly, moving here to the river, which is pretty bad. It's the 5 of spades. Now the board is a one-liner to a straight to any 3 or any 8. Pretty bad run out here with top set, but I don't think checking is good. I think I can still get value from 2 pairs or possibly even Jack X holding, so I put out a bet of $200, and my opponent gives me the bad news. He basically snap jams all in. He goes all in for $915. Oh, this is just such a gross spot. We end up flopping the nuts with top set and the board runs out. Terrible for us. But now I start thinking, can I fold here? Immediately I thought, yep, I should fold. I should just let go of my top set. But after thinking for a while, I try to think how many 8s does my opponent have in his range? And I guess he can have a hand like 8-6. He can have 7-8. Or maybe pocket 8s, but I think pocket 8s might fold in the turn. He could potentially have a hand like Jack 8, but that's unlikely because we have 2 jacks in our hands. If I'm going to make this call, I have to decide what hands can my opponent be bluffing with, and he could have some backdoor flush draw hands like Ace X of hearts, King X of hearts, or like Queen 10 of hearts that he could be bluffing with. He could be using this scary run out to try to get me off my hand. It kind of looks like I have a one pair hand like King Jack, pocket aces, or pocket kings. I didn't really bet too big on the flop. Didn't bet too big on the turn, and now I'm just betting $200 on the river. He could be turning his one pair hand into a bluff, king high into a bluff, or maybe he just has a 5 and he's turning that into a bluff as well. I have noticed that this opponent is down money on the session. He's lost some pretty big pots. He's probably in the game for 2 or 3 buy-ins so far, so maybe he's trying to pull a big bluff, get himself back to even. That's a possibility. I end up tanking for like over 2 minutes, and I just think top set is just too strong to fold for only $700 more, so I end up talking myself into a call.
I feel like you deserve it, man. That's all I got. Yeah. Look at this flop. It's so sick. Ooh. Sick.
My opponent has Jack 8 offsuit here. He was basically drawing dead on the flop. He had about 1.5% to win the hand, so he got pretty unlucky with this run out. I guess I could have folded, but sometimes you just got to pay it off and see the bad news. We are now over at the main game now. There's a limp. A tough pro makes it $50. I have Queen Jack suited in later position, and I end up making the call and the limper fold. So heads up to the flop, which comes out for Jack 8 2 clubs. He c-bets $80, and I make the call. Going to the turn, which is an offsuit deuce. Now he continues to put the pressure on. He bets again, pretty big sizing, $210. Not really liking this spot. I have a jack with only a queen kicker. I'm losing to all over pairs, ace jack, king jack, and even some sets. But my opponent could also be semi-bluffing with some big straight draws and flush draws, some big combo draws. So on this board, on this run out, I can't fold just yet, but I'm not feeling too good about it. I end up making the call for $210, looking to reevaluate on the river, which comes off another 4. Pairs the board. All the straight draws and flush draws miss, so I'm not liking this spot, but I'm probably going to have to call whatever he bets here on the river, but he decides to check. So I'm most likely ahead here, but I don't think betting is good. I don't think he's going to call me with any worse hands, so I'm just going to take my queen jack to showdown. I decide to check back. He shows 5-6 of clubs for a missed straight flush draw. I show my queen jack to take down this pot. Trading in our queen jack of spades for queen jack of clubs. Early position makes it 35. I 3-bet next to act 2 115 and he makes a call. Flop is jack 10-5 with 1 club. We flop top pair. He checks. I bet $100 and he makes the call. The turn card pairs the board. It's another 5. Great card for us. My opponent checks to me, and like I said earlier in the vlog, I want to be playing balanced with these players. If I was bluffing with a hand like ace king, ace queen, or king queen, I want to be betting very big on this turn card. So I want to do the same thing when I have value, like a jack, an overpair, or a full house with pocket 10s. So I decide to go big, a big pot-sized bet of $400. My opponent thinks for about 5 seconds and folds. We end up taking down the last pot of the night. That is it for us. We end up racking up our chips, head into the cage, and cashing out. Alright guys, that is it for today's session. And I know I've said this a couple times in the vlog, but the poker swings are just crazy. And then to play poker for a living is even crazier, honestly. I have just witnessed, and you guys have watched, the biggest downswing of my career. I lost for basically 2 months straight. I lost the longest period of time that I've ever lost in my life, and I also lost the most money I've ever lost in my life playing poker. I was down $11,000 earlier this month, and it was rough. But we are now on the upswing. It feels fantastic. This week so far, I have won 5 out of 6 sessions I played. Yesterday, I came in and played 5-10. I won $2,800 in 4 hours. I got ace-high flush over king-high flush. Won a pretty big pot there. Flopped a couple straights and made some big pots there. Today, came in right away, aces versus kings. Won a big pot. I think I flopped 4 sets today. Only lost 1 big pot, jacks versus jack 8. Pretty unfortunate. But things are finally going in my direction. Finally going good for me. It's just been so long since I've been on this upswing, and it feels good. It feels really good. This last week, we are up about $9,000, which is much needed. Today's results in the game for $2,500, cashing out for $4,350 for a profit of $1,850. So things are going good. No more downswing as of now. We're finally winning at poker again, playing good poker, not punting, not getting out of line, trying to play good solid poker, and hopefully the wins keep coming. I'll be documenting them for you guys to watch. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for the advice. Thanks for pushing me to get back at the table. All that stuff. I appreciate it. If you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below. Videos every single week. And until next time, I'll see you.